What are some of the key challenges when helping people cope with suffering?
It's difficult. She said, Doctor, I don't believe in God anymore.
Nobody talks to you about God in the midst of pleasure.
That's it.
But it is when you go through pain, evil and suffering that you tend to
Turn your face towards God.
Yeah. Hello everyone. Welcome to another episode of Reasons Podcast, wherein we explore the big questions of life, faith, and the Bible. In this episode, we are going to look at the topic of God, medicine, physical pain, and disability. A subject that challenges us to think deeply and to reflect wider. In this journey called life, very often we earnestly pray and desire to live a life that is free from physical pain. And in today's context and culture, there is this narrative that tends to actually believe that there is always a conflict between science and faith in God. Skeptics argue that in fact scientific progress has rendered even belief in God unnecessary. To answer these questions and many others, we are honored and we are pleased to have with us Dr. Lahunlang Sohliya. Welcome, Doctor.
Thank you.
She is someone who is trained as a medical doctor and holds an MD in the field of physical medicine and rehabilitation. She has been in this field now for the past 10 years, and she's someone whom I know who integrates both her scientific practice and also her firm belief in the Bible. To begin with, I would like to pose a question, Doctor, to you on this very topic of science and personal faith. Now, you have been someone who have immersed yourself in the study of science, especially medical science, specializing, as I've mentioned, in physical medicine and rehabilitation. Now, in what ways, if any, has your study and the practice of medicine pointed you towards God? Would you say it has strengthened your faith or challenged your faith, and how?
So, firstly, thank you for having me here. I will try to answer this question and be a little direct.
Sure.
It has both strengthened and challenged my faith. It sounds like I'm confused when I say I'll take the easier answer and say it's both. Why has it challenged my faith? So, in my daily practice, I meet a lot of people who have pain. I meet a lot of people who also have disability. This is something which is very difficult, especially when people say when they struggle and when they come to me and I say I don't have an answer. Okay, for example, I just see a child and the child is 12 years old and cannot walk. If I meet a person who has so much injury and so much pain that no amount of medicines can help them, it makes me, it really challenges me at that time. And this is also real. If I meet a person, and this is a real thing, a child who in her very young years, because of her disability, is taken advantage of by her father or her uncle or her grandfather, it leaves you a little speechless. And you wonder where at that point, why God is silent. Do you understand what I mean? So
Yes,
it challenges your faith because you know that there's a God.
Yes.
So at that point, where is that God?
Yeah.
And so it has strengthened my faith also in a way that, see, I am a person who is not a very brave person. Neither am I powerful. I believe and have always believed that I cannot do big things. And I have also felt that when you want to make a difference, you need to be very smart, you need to be very good, you need to be someone out there, you need to have a lot of qualifications, and you need to be this.
Yeah.
But I'm none of that. I'm none of that. I've never been. So when I left my very comfortable and stable job to start PMR Center, I had so many plans. I'm going to do this. And none of them worked because God had different plans.
Yes.
God brought me to people who experienced pain and disability at a level that I never really imagined. And many times that strengthens my faith, because I know that God has kept me here to do something for them. Now in John chapter 9, so when the disciples and Jesus met this man who was blind, and so they say, Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind? And so Jesus says, neither this man nor his parents sinned, but he is blind, so that the glory of God may be displayed in him. And I feel this has strengthened my faith, because my purpose here is to help people who go through so much pain and disability, for the glory of God to be displayed in them. For the glory of God. So I say that because a lot of them are helpless. When people come, it's not for me to just make them, okay, for you to start lifting your hand again. And you know that. It's not just for someone to start walking again, or for a person who has not run in many, many years to start running again. That is my job as a doctor, but also I believe that my job here, as for what God has kept me, is to also display His glory in that person. And somehow He's doing that through me. So that's where our motto is also taken for our center, from Matthew chapter 19, verse 26. With man this is impossible, but with God all things, it's all possible. Because with me, I wouldn't be able to do one single thing for one single person. But with God, He's doing it. It's possible. So that's definitely strengthened my belief and my faith in Him.
Wow, wow. I mean, I'm so thrilled to hear that your studies or your immersion in your medical science has not done away with your faith, but it is something that you see that your faith in God, and you are using science as a handiwork of God in enabling people. And I think that is a very good point that you've
That's
mentioned.
exactly what it is. Because God was there first. And because we have faith and we have doubt, I think we're allowed to have both. And that's where pain and struggling comes in. But God was there, God is there, we are just in between. I'm here so that He can get it done. So I really believe in that, in what I just said, so that the glory of God can be displayed. And I had this patient who started running, no hands and no legs, but he started running. I feel that God is doing something in him. He just needed me. He put me in this place to help him. That's all it is.
Yeah. In fact, I'm reminded of something that, when you study in Christian theology, it actually teaches us two important aspects. That one, God is the creator of everything, as you've mentioned, because ultimately God is not only the creator, but He is also the one who mends us and who heals us, right? But at the same time, in Christian theology, there's another important aspect. Apart from believing in God as the creator, He's also the one who's the sustainer. He sustains us.
Correct.
And so I think that is very, very important in the way that you've brought things together for us to understand the dynamic relationship between science and our personal faith. Yeah. So that brings me to the second question, Doctor, and this is faith and medical practice. Now, how does your faith in God influence the way you practice medicine, and particularly in your interactions with your patients and your colleagues? How has it changed?
All right. So because of my faith in God, I want to believe that I want to create a safe space for people to come to. And by that, I mean, when someone is helpless, I want them to feel safe. I may not always have the answers, but it is because of my faith in God that that I want them to feel welcome and to feel safe. Let me just tell you a short
Sure,
story
sure.
about just to make this clear. So, before in the olden days, so leprosy, you've heard of leprosy.
Yes, yes.
So leprosy was very much a disease which is a disease with a big stigma around it. So when people had leprosy, even in the time of when Jesus was there, also people were outcast from the community. And there was a time a long time ago that after they would take away everything that they had, they would give them was a bowl for them to beg, and they would put bells around their neck so that if they were to approach, then people would be alerted and say that these people have approached, so that you do not have any contact with people with leprosy. So there's this doctor in called Dr. Paul Brand.
Yes,
You might
yes.
know about it, and
I'm
you
aware.
might have
I'm aware
also
of his book.
read about the book, The Gift of
The
Pain.
Gift of Pain.
So in his book, do you remember, in the last part of the book, do you remember when he tells a story of his patient called John? So his patient John was since he was a boy, he had leprosy. So he was obviously an outcast, and he was deformed outside, and so because it causes a lot of deformities and physical issues, but he also had a lot of pain and deformity inside because of the way that he had always been treated. He was a very difficult child, not likable, nobody liked him, he was always bothering, bullying, not a nice boy. Even when he grew up, he was not very nice. So this is what Dr. Paul Brand writes in his book, that as he grew, he always questioned him, Dr. Paul Brand, that you're only doing this for money. If it wasn't for money, you wouldn't have let me come to your church. So if I go to the church in town, in Vellore, this is in Vellore, no? So if I go, will they allow me? They will not allow me. But you're allowing me because of the money. So Dr. Paul Brand goes to the Vellore church in town, and he speaks to the people there, to the maybe pastors in charge, and says he's not contagious anymore. Can he come to church? Then, with a lot of hesitancy, they agreed. So they went to church. Dr. Paul Brand and this John, they sit in the back bench, and everything is very tense. You can actually feel the tenseness in that story. And so they've sung the first hymn, and this after the end of the first hymn, this man half looks back and they hold their breath because he's seen them. And what do people do? They run out. Usually that is their reaction. But he puts his hymn book down, and he indicates him to come and sit down next to him. And that was the turning point in John's life. Why am I saying that? Is that we might do rehabilitation, we might deal with we might do a lot of medical things, but finally the healing point, like the turning point in John's life, was the acceptance of just another person for a deformed brother. Just the acceptance healed him. That's all. And so the Bible tells us that perfect love drives out fear. My faith needs to do that. So your question was, what is my how did it change my interaction? My faith needs to, faith, hope, and love are the three pillars in the Christian faith. And I might have faith, I might have hope, but I have to have love, because perfect love will drive out fear so much that I can deal with people who struggle. I can deal with someone who everybody has turned away, the stigma, and I can deal with the people that I work with love, so that it'll be a safe space for everyone.
Wow. I really like the way that you connected both your personal faith and even the prowess of medical advancement in terms of its ability to use its scientific discovery in making it available for people for their healing, but the faith aspect is very important in the story you've mentioned,
Yeah.
especially of John from Paul Brand's book. For those of you audience who may not, viewers who may not be aware of this book, this is a book that Doctor was talking about. It is a book written by Dr. Paul Brand, and the title of the book is The Gift of Pain. And it's a very important work, and I would encourage many of our viewers to actually get the book and read it for yourself. And so once again, thank you for your response to that question. Now, moving on, I would like to actually shift gears and move to another important sub-theme, which is pain, suffering, and healing. And these are very important, especially when it comes to physical pain. So as a physician who regularly works with patients dealing with physical pain, what are some of the key challenges you face medically, emotionally, or spiritually when helping people cope with suffering in their lives?
One key challenge medically is the lack of awareness. And the lack of awareness has a lot to deal with the society that we currently live in, the place that we currently live in. But that is something which is a big challenge, because it's something I cannot deal with by myself or on my own as a person or as a private organization either. It's a lot of infrastructure change, there's a lot of government laws and regulations. A person in pain or disability, for that matter, might have to need to sit on a wheelchair, but they can't travel anywhere. So a lot of that has to come with the infrastructure, the way that we are accommodative of them. So medically, it's very challenging to deal with this particular group of patients. Emotionally and spiritually, well, that is that for me is again very similar to the first question that you asked. It's difficult. I had a patient very recently who, because her sister had undergone so much pain and suffering, she said, "Doctor, I don't believe in God anymore." So what am I supposed to say then? No, you have to believe. This is a temporary thing.
You can't force it on them.
Yes. God knows what He's doing. Can I just keep, when they say the suffering is just too much, I don't want to believe in God anymore. So I don't know what they're going through. I don't have the pain that they're feeling. I don't know, because I sleep peacefully at night. I don't wake up with a disability. I cannot say I understand, because I don't understand. So it's very difficult for me. Spiritually, I need to pray. That's all. I've really witnessed that when I pray for my patients, something happens. So I think that is the main, that is something which, because I cannot evangelize and tell them, God is good all the time, and it's difficult, but I can pray for them. So I do that, and I've seen God answering prayers.
Yeah. And in fact, I'm reminded of what C.S. Lewis once said about this. When we are, I'm paraphrasing this, when we are going through our pleasures in life, we tend to hear God whisper to us.
Yes.
But when we go through pain and suffering, it is basically God's megaphone, where you hear Him, the loudest. And the story you mentioned, what do you do? In the midst of all of that. And I think very often people tend to actually say that when you go through suffering and pain, it tends to actually tell us that there is no God.
Yes.
Yeah,
that's exactly,
because of when you are in the midst of evil, pain, suffering, there is no God. But on the contrary, I would argue that it is when you go through pain, suffering, that you tend to actually sense the need of God.
Absolutely.
Nobody talks to you about God in the midst of pleasure.
That's the truth.
But it is when you go through pain, evil, and suffering that you tend to
turn your face towards God.
Yeah, whether it's in anger or whether it is in any mode of your emotional status or situation, I think that is the time when you tend to actually feel and feel the need for God.
Yeah.
And to talk about God. And I'm glad that you brought the element of not only treating people medically, but also wishing and praying for them.
I do.
Yeah.
I prayed for you too.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, I
I think
needed,
it made a difference.
in the midst of pain, that was the one that I needed the most.
I'll tell you, it made a difference because you might be one of them, but there are people that overnight there's just something happens.
Yes.
But it's not everyone,
True,
and there are certain cases that I've focused this prayer on them, and an answer just comes in the days to come. I
Sure.
think
And I agree with you, even in my own training, in my own studies of both philosophy, theology, and I find that this is a very important thought because, when you go through pain and suffering, I believe that, in a world where we spoke about God being the creator.
Yes.
And then secondly, we also spoke about God being the sustainer. And so we believe that even miracles, healing takes place because we have a God that is described to us in the scripture or in the Bible, that he intervenes.
Yes.
He intervenes. So it is not like some people believe that, God created and left and, for us to suffer and to deal with all of our problems in this world. So I think that's a very important dimension for us to think and to keep in mind. Now, I will bring now and I will ask you another important question. And in fact, this will be the last question. This is the question with regard to the community as a whole, and the believing community, disability and inclusion. Now, in this, my question to you is, when you reflect on our places of worship, what changes or improvement do you think, as a doctor who have dealt with people who go through pain, what are the things that are needed to better support, and include people living with disability?
Okay, so have you read this book, What on Earth Am I Here For? By Rick Warren? No?
I'm afraid
All
not.
right. So in this book, there's a chapter on that which talks about how real servants act. And one of the points which I was drawn to, in this thing, was how a real servant knows when you need something, knows need the well, actually, how a real servant knows the need of the master. So in this case, we are all here to serve God. And I think in the book of Galatians also it says, do good to all, especially to those who belong to the family of believers. Now, when we're talking about that, how much good are we doing, is my question. When we are sitting in church, when we are praying, when we're able to worship our God, but someone else who cannot walk is met by steps in the front, or by a toilet which is not accessible, or where someone who cannot hear is not able to, has to know the songs by heart if he's going to sing anything, or he cannot hear what the preacher is preaching, or if someone who cannot see also will not be able to sit in a church service. How much are we really serving others when we are not really when we are in an environment like that? What I believe is that if it is in our power to act right now, for example, if we are sitting in churches which are accessible and everybody is able to go to the church, now that would be something in which we are in it together, worshiping God together. It also says that you do good to all the family of believers, to all people, especially to the family of believers, but also that do it if it is in your power to act, if it is in your power. So I believe that our leaders have the power to act, or maybe the government. I'm not just talking about churches or the government, or different organizations, business, schools, colleges are in the power to act. They have the power to act. So maybe the time is now. And we do not have to wait for our children and our children's children to do something about it later. Okay, so maybe we do not have to expect that change to come then, because the time is now. Make the change now. That is in the leadership position. But okay, for you and me, now for you and me, how is it that we can help someone? So do you know about the story of Jesus? Of course you do. Of Jesus taking the four friends taking the paralytic to Jesus in Capernaum. So there was such a big crowd outside, and they could not even get close to Jesus. So what did they do? They went and put him up from the roof.
Yes.
And Jesus was in the middle of his preaching, and they disturbed the entire thing, which is dropping him in front of Jesus, dropping the friend
From the rooftop.
from the roof, right in front of Jesus. No, why does this come into context here? Do we bring people to Jesus in that way? So do we have a role to play? Can we, if we see them having a hindrance, do we turn a blind eye? Or do we actually try to open the way for them, to bring them to Jesus, to bring them to the house of worship?
Very true.
Do we do that? So whether it's a person in power who can do it, or whether it's you and me, everybody has a role, because we are all servants of Christ. It's not just them, it's not just us.
True.
But together, accessibility can be answered, and something needs to be done about it. Because we are sitting, we are praying, but are they in the house of God? And the church is a place of love. The church is supposed to be a place of welcome. Is it? Is the question at this point.
Yeah. And so what are some of the changes that, let's say, something that is concrete for people to be able to articulate the suggestion that you are making?
Practically?
What are some of the changes?
Even if we were to say practically, okay, in the church, does your church have a ramp?
Wow, okay. As basic as that?
As basic as that. Does it have a ramp? Because many churches don't have like so many stairs. There are some churches which do that. You have to do a little bit of a change. Many have maybe a little bit of stairs.
Okay.
Do they have a ramp? One area at least. So we're not, maybe later down the line, the altars can be changed or anything. That does not necessarily have to be now. But does entering the church cause a hindrance? Does it have a ramp? Second, are toilets accessible? One toilet can be accessible at least, because a person going to church and not having an accessible toilet will be it becomes a hindrance again. And then there are other things, like we can have braille, that is for people who can't read. That is very much there. And we can have different ways for even hearing, for the hearing impaired. Because they're hearing impaired, we can have visual ways for them to see. It doesn't necessarily mean they cannot come. It just means a little bit of adjustment. And this is just some of the things. There are more. But if we were to sit and discuss, don't you think there would be an answer?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Or are we okay with us going to church
and ignoring
the rest? Oh God.
And this is in contrary to what the scriptures would require us.
It's written there. It's written there.
Yeah.
We are all servants, and yes, to care for your brother who is in need. But and so this answers both the pain and the disability question, because disability also you can't get into the church because of the disability. But even pain, a person in pain also has issues of getting into that church, of going to that church. So that also becomes a hindrance. So maybe there can be a lot of ways in which these can be discussed. Of course, this is not the platform for that, but they should be addressed.
Clearly, I mean, from what you've just mentioned, this is what I would say or summarize. It is faith in action that is lacking on the ground.
Yes.
That we don't see even in, when you speak about faith, it needs to be translated even into our architecture.
Yes.
The structures.
Yes. So as we had discussed before, belief needs to bring about change. So we are believers. We call ourselves believers. But does it stop there?
I hope and I pray that this message that you are sharing with your experience, especially in dealing with people, with disability and people struggling with pain, physical pain, and their inability to be able to join the rest of the community to go to a worship place. And I think because of the lack of the facilities for them to be able to go in wheelchairs and even in the restrooms, that we find that they are not friendly enough for those with disability and other issues.
Right.
And I hope that this message is goes out loud and clear.
I hope so too.
Loud and clear.
I hope so
So
too.
that faith in action will be translated into the changes even in our architecture, in our worship places.
Yes, I pray for that too. Yeah.
With that, I'm afraid we have come towards the end of today's episode. And a big thank you to you, Dr. Lahun, for all the valuable insights that you have shared with regard to the topic and the theme that we have discussed. Dear viewers, if you found our conversation meaningful, please do not forget to subscribe to our channel, like this very episode that we've just had, and do share it with others who are on the journey of faith, reason, and discovery. For more resources, contents about our events as well, please do not forget to go to our website, rtbapac.in, and please check out the different articles, the resources that we have, and the different podcasts that we've recorded thus far that will be very helpful for you. Until next time, stay curious and keep seeking truth. Thank you.